Welcome to the TNC Random Fandom Podcast. We are here to have fun and talk all things pop culture, collecting, and nerd culture in general. Make sure you join the conversation during our live stream with our most excellent hosts, Craig Borden and Tommy Mock. Let the shenanigans begin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back, because it's been just a little bit since we've been gone and whatnot, but here we are, back again, TNC Random Fandom. I am your host, Craig Borden, and with me, my buddy and my partner in crime, a fellow nerd, Tommy Mock. How the hell are you, buddy?
I am fantastic, sir. Fantastic. And I do want to apologize to the fans for being gone for so long, but as I said in our promo, we are, life was lifing and things were happening. How about those Blue Jays,
in another
man?
Country?
I was literally in another country. But sorry about those Blue Jays, man. Sorry about the Blue Jays.
Oh, you gotta be saying more about the Bills now, bud. It's just not
I know. No, the wound is still fresh.
Hey, we just moved over to it's gonna hopefully the Sabres make the playoffs for the first time in a bajillion years, and we'll be all set and we'll all be good to go. But on that note, Tommy, we got a wonderful topic here and a comeback. It's not quite an Empire Strikes Back, but we do have some fun here to talk about tonight. So hit us what the topic is tonight, my friend.
So tonight we are going to discuss one of arguably one of the best modern day Star Wars movies that I would have to say really doesn't have anything to do with the Skywalker saga. It was the Star Wars movie that was the first one to come out after the acquisition of LucasArts by Disney. So I think that it's probably, I would say that this is arguably one of the best modern Star Wars movies that we've ever received. And probably still won't receive anything better yet.
Argument would be there. So on that note, why don't we chit chat with our friends that we have waiting in the green room? Let's just talk. I got my buddy Chris, who is going to be joining us here. My buddy Chris. What the hell are you? You're looking forward to the topic we got tonight, Chris?
I'm very excited. I'm ready to go.
You're literally full in uniform. Love it for you showing up for it, buddy. So also with us, we got Thomas joining us, our buddy, also a giant Rogue One fan. How are we doing tonight, my friend?
I'm good, man. Happy to be joining the pod today.
Yeah, we got a fun
and
one,
hopefully this won't be the only time that you're joining the pod there, Thomas.
It won't be. I guarantee that.
Yeah.
Chris is a veteran of the show.
Yeah, Star Wars guy. He's our boy. So, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. The last time we had you on the show was literally to talk all things the original trilogy, correct?
Original trilogy, and it might have been an anniversary of, I think, Empire.
Yeah, might have been. I think that was it. That sounds about right. So, because Tommy was very upset that he missed that episode.
No. I was on the Empire episode. I wasn't on the episode 1 episode.
That's what it was.
That was
yes.
Yeah.
So yeah,
the divisive
on that
episode 1.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So on that note, boys, I'm going to want to go right around the table here because I want to take you back to this wonderful time frame where Lucasfilm was Lucasfilm. We had video games, we had everything that was going on in the crazy levels of merchandise that was always coming out. We had all these things that were great, and then all of a sudden, the House of Mouse comes in and goes, "Here's a giant brick of money." And they took care of Star Wars from then on and all the other wonderful Lucasfilm properties. But let's go around the table here and start with Thomas. Go back to that memory. What was that like in your mind space when you heard that, okay, great, Disney all of a sudden owns Star Wars and we're going to get new movies?
I mean, honestly, like if I'm 100% honest, I was like a little apprehensive because like you always hear about how Disney is with their intellectual property, like how they really like make hard pushes to like monetize it, like with all the merchandising and all that. And of course, like Lucas did that as well, but Disney is like obviously the goats of like monetizing their IP. So it was kind of, of course, it's giving them a bunch of more resources, a bunch of money to like make better movies, but it's still kind of in the back of my mind. It was like, This could go a few different ways. So.
It was the difference between literally the corporate machine and still the man with the vision and the man with the plan at that point is how I summarized it.
Exactly.
So, Chris, what are you thinking when this all went down? I know there was plenty probably going through that wonderful Star Wars mind of yours.
It was an interesting time because there were good things coming out of the Disney Star Wars element. The early Filoni stuff came at that time. We were able to get the animated series, and then we got, Rebels and things like that. And if it wasn't for their ownership, they wouldn't have had the rights to do that. So did it give us some good Star Wars content? Yes. Did it also give us some questionable Star Wars content? Heck yes. That's why the fan base is so split on this whole thing with them, because they put the money into projects, and some of them were successful projects and some of them were not so successful, and it depended on a lot of interesting factors.
Yep. Tommy, hit me with it, buddy.
So I agree with Thomas and Chris. At first I was actually excited. I'm thinking Disney money. That means we're going to get full scale, no holds barred. We're going to see some of these stories that were novelized. I was hoping for a Shadows of the Empire. I was hoping for a lot of these different stories and characters that you read in the books and in the comic books. Like Chris said, it could have went any way. And I was hoping for more of the let's do, I wouldn't say fan service, but let's do something more. Let's expand the galaxy, so to speak. And at first, I thought that they were going in that direction. I think that they were coming up with some newer stories that centered around the universe that we knew. But again, we weren't really sure what we were going to get. I mean, George Lucas put out some questionable movies, and basically rewrote his original trilogy in a different time. But no, I was very, very optimistic because I was thinking of Disney being a juggernaut with a very large purse, so to speak.
Valid. And to your point, that large purse was quickly opened even to make this whole thing happen, bringing just the wonderful news headline back. $4.05 billion is what Disney paid for the Lucasfilm empire, which, by the way, it wasn't just Lucasfilm, obviously. It was they acquired Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Industrial Light and Magic, Skywalker Sound, and just, pick. It was the film empire that
and the game studio. I think they got the game studio as well.
Yep. So it was literally the everything George Lucas, right? It was anything and everything. So at that point, you do get the backing on that whole thing. And Tommy, I remember you and I found out about this, funny enough. I think you and I were actually on the road, or it was just while we happened to be home working together in cubicle land. And it was like, oh my God, every one of us was just giant Star Wars nerds when this broke.
Yeah.
Went back to that instant regression of being a child thinking of, just
we're going to get something new. We're going to get something new.
Exactly. That excitement, that intensity of all the fun that is just, it was right back in our faces again. It's like, okay, great. You knew that one thing that was inevitably going to happen with the Disney universe taking over Star Wars and Indiana Jones, all these things, was the fact that there was going to be more content, to your point, Thomas. It was going to become the corporate machine. Things were going to advance, and there was gonna be more movies. So they made the first announcements, talked about how the universe is getting cleaned up, kind of literally in the midst of that whole thing, that the books and all the wonderful things that we all grew up in lieu of the movies kind of became, quote unquote, the expanded universe, right? And the next thing was, guess what? Our first movie is coming out, and it's going to be about how the Death Star plans got stolen, which eventually evolves into Star Wars Rogue One. Tommy, when you heard this was coming out and that was going to be the premise to the movie, or you saw the first trailer, what were your first thoughts on that part?
I was really excited because we are going to get introduced to some characters that we never knew before. But we are also going to get some insight as to what was happening before episode 4. So honestly,
which we had no idea of, really.
Right. I mean, we hear all of the rumblings of what's going on in the rebellion and everything, but we never really knew, except for what was given to us in episode 4, of how the Death Star was, how they found out how this weak spot. I loved it. I love the fact that we only got one, and I know we'll talk about this, but we really didn't get any lightsaber battles. We didn't get any Force users yet. We got regular Joes that were truly part of a rebellion that were trying to fight a dictatorship, if you will. And funny thing is that a lot of what Rogue One was giving us in 2016, kind of sort of what we're living right now in real life in 2026. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But again, this is not a political show, but there are a lot of similarities that art imitating life,
Yeah.
But no, I was excited. I was excited for it because again, we got characters brand new characters outside of the core trilogy. And yeah,
we're going to get into each one of those
Wonderful.
characters pretty much one by one, Tommy. So just pause for 0.2 seconds. Or freeze.
Pausing.
Anyways, Chris, this movie gets landed out the plan to what Tommy had mentioned. Before this movie came out, the only thing we knew was episode 3 ended the way George Lucas ended it. Post all the other fun. The episode 4, original Star Wars, starts off with literally a blaster scene in a hallway, and the only thing I actually knew about what happened was that the Death Star plans got happened, and Darth Vader yelled at everybody a lot for letting it happen.
We had one line in one of the scenes with the rebellion, and I think it was many Bothans died to get us these plans. That's it. That's what we knew. We had no idea what Bothans were. We had no idea how about the spies or any of that. And, it was literally just how are we going to explain this MacGuffin really quick with, okay, we're going to just explain it with this line of text. Yeah. And that's going to explain everything. And nobody's going to question it because nobody has a clue yet. Yeah. And that was what was great because they could get away with it. They totally got away with it. We all just believed it. And then this movie was coming out. It's like, okay, do we get to find out what a Bothan is now?
Yeah, there you go. Game on.
And did they ever? I don't think they ever told us if Cassian was a Bothan, but we got a good movie. So
and that would be the key. So Thomas, take us back to that same time frame. You found out what's going on. Go ahead.
I apologize, Chris, but I have to correct you on that. When the Bothans got the plans, those were for the second Death Star in Return of the Jedi, not the first one.
Thank you. Okay, that was good correction.
Yeah. Because I know if somebody's listening to us live right now, they're yelling at us going, he's wrong, it's Jedi, that wasn't the first one.
That was the second. Okay.
And to that point, no Star Wars fan would ever do that.
Fair point. Absolutely.
There's a great line, though.
It is.
He was so confident. But
and now I feel like a dick.
Yeah, it's because you're a Star Wars fan. This is what it is. So on that note, Thomas, we get to go back and goof around to that whole thing with now we got something that's going to kick us off and tell this story, which in all reality, we did hear all that stuff that we did hear. Like I said, it's like, okay, great. They magically got the plans. It's in a droid. Okay, great. Well, there's got to be a way that all happens.
Yeah, I mean, for me, so that was definitely part of it. But again, I was still apprehensive, right? Because you hear, okay, new Star Wars, and it's not part of the main story. So it's oh, so they're gonna do a spin-off. Is it gonna be low quality? Are they gonna are they gonna mess it up, right? So it was kind of okay. it's not the main story. It's kind of like it's being done by what's essentially a new studio. It was like, oh, like, and Star Wars is so like near and dear to me in terms of the lore, especially. It's like I just didn't want him to mess it up. And then turns out like it's the most adult, like best version of Star Wars that I had seen,
Yeah.
hasn't it?
And I think that was the key to it. And Chris, I'm going to let you take the beginning of this one here and run with this whole thing. This was not your kid's Star Wars. This was something very grounded. This was honestly shot like, Apocalypse Now in a Vietnam kind of like movie. There was all these wonderful things that as adults that we finally got to see something that was cemented in reality, but still a sci-fi wonderful saga of a movie. And then the characters, like I said, is the next part of this whole thing that I want to make sure we focus on a little bit. But how was that to experience with just going from your childhood to now watching this as an adult to going, oh, wow, that's what I pictured Star Wars really was like?
It really grounded the Empire as an evil force in so many different ways. Because you saw, the Empire or the Emperor and Vader in the trilogy that, we grew up on, but they were just the head of they were the bad guys. They were these dark evil forces, and they controlled the Empire, and there was a lot of talk of the Empire, but what was the Empire? What was the Empire doing? Does anyone even know? Did they hardly, there was a reason people were rebelling against it, but they didn't get into that very much because that wasn't part of the story they were telling at the time. We got to see the why for the rebellion finally, and that part of it was cool. But you are absolutely correct, not for children in any way, shape, or form. My brother wants to have his son eventually get to it, and he's like, we've watched all the stuff and we're at Rogue One, but he's 8, and he's like, oh,
maybe we wait on that one a minute.
But if he waits, then it messes up the timeline, and he's like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, brother. This is a tough one because the content is is dark. It's true. It's it's a real representation of what oppression can look like.
Yeah. So Tommy, let's talk the characters in this movie and let's get that ball rolling here a little bit. Cassian Andor, Jyn Erso, obviously even a appearance by Princess Leia and Governor Tarkin in this whole thing. You get the emergence of Saw Gerrera. All these, pick a character that you want to talk about from this movie, and we're going to go around the table here a little bit and just chit chat on those because the characters in this movie are incredible, and we only got to enjoy them for literally the movie.
So right, and that honestly, this is the reason why I love Empire Strikes Back, because you didn't get the shiny happy ending at it. This movie, you didn't get a shiny happy ending. You didn't. All of these characters that you had come to know within the span of this movie, that they all died. They died fighting for something that they truly believed in and were willing to give their life for that cause, and that cause being true freedom. And so, I mean, I know that Thomas and Chris definitely probably want to mention Andor, Cassian, because we luckily got a series that kind of gives us even more of a backstory of one of the main characters, which is Cassian Andor. But Jyn Erso, unlikely hero, unlikely hero to the person who actually built the Death Star. And, and it's
Father
hard
Galen.
to believe that a person who, as he was doing this and working for them, grew a conscience. And that's, a true defector in a way, but not necessarily. He still was in a way of kind of a coward. He still worked on it, but he's like, okay, I'm going to give them the means of blowing this thing up. But, We seen what
Still
happened
was-
to Alderaan now, didn't we?
There is that. There's like a whole planet.
But I think Jyn Erso was a fantastic character, and I don't subscribe to that narrative that some people were saying, oh, we purposely got this, strong female character on purpose because we, feminism and stuff. No, honestly, Leia was one of the strongest characters in the original trilogy. She was a natural leader. Jyn Erso was a reluctant leader and hero. So, I don't subscribe to the whole, they purposely put that, the Force's female stuff in there because honestly, that was a good character, a brand new character and a strong character. And gender has nothing to do with it. She was a good character.
I think that's the key. That's the key, Tommy. Like, it wasn't just like a strong female lead. It was like just a strong person that like anyone can relate to, not just like and that's why it worked, in my opinion.
And both of the female characters are very strong with very different like origins. You look at Leia's origin as a princess and as a rebel leader, and her adopted parents, the Organas, being active members of a rebellious group all the way back through everything. Like her track makes sense. Jyn is the wife of a child soldier and like somebody who's gone through a lot, and she's strong, but in a very different way. And like, it's great to see the different dynamic of strong characters, especially, strong feminine characters are great in these stories because they help carry everything. That means, everybody, you're not reliant on just one main person. You have a great, strong cast that carries the story all the way through.
Yeah. And I just think Star Wars in general is just whoever does what they need to do at the end of the day. It doesn't matter where they're from or anything like that. The Star Wars universe has always been one of these places with just incredible characters. Even going to the expanded universe stuff, which Chris, you and I have had way too many deep talks on. But Han Solo, his daughter in the expanded universe, is just one of the best Jedi there is. It's that simple. So there's all these characters that in the movies we haven't even touched on. But to your point, even Mon Mothma is an insanely, powerful woman in this universe that is overseeing all of this stuff. And in this movie was honestly one of the only ones that really was kind of pushing Jyn, and then it happened. So good stuff. Thomas, pick a character in this movie you want to chit chat on.
There's
so many good ones.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, my favorite character, I mean, for sure, is definitely like K2SO, the droid. For sure. But in terms of like, I mean, in Alan Tudyk, obviously everyone knows this like royalty in science fiction. Just absolutely nailed the humor, the dry humor, everything. But like for me, the most powerful, or at least one of them, has to be Saul Guerrero. Like, my favorite
could
character.
You cast a better actor for that little role too? Exactly. He won an Oscar like a month and a half before this whole thing.
And, I mean, he nailed the role too. Like, like kind of being the way I see him in the movie is kind of like I don't want to say an analog to Darth Vader, but kind of like a different version of him, like on the rebel side, where like, he can be cruel, he can not above, straight up murder people. Like,
by going to get a Bogullet, which is a giant alien monster that just drills into your brain.
Exactly. And so, I mean, for me,
that's horrible.
Everything from like, the lore they gave him to the execution, like, just one of the greats.
And
series.
You talk about a character that has resonated with people too, because now that we have had all the other TV shows, the other pieces, the other things that have been the animated series, the other TV series, Saw Gerrera has become, since this movie, a pivotal character in some of the things that ended up just steering the rebellion, which you planted the seeds with Forrest Whitaker in this movie, and he's just taking that role and going, fine, I'm good for life now. I'm just going to be a Star Wars character.
And honestly, that might be why I'm a bit biased, is because of all of the stuff after Rogue One, particularly like Andor, which we'll talk about, but like how Forrest Whitaker kind of took that role and for real made it, his own. It's probably why I'm a little biased when I'm looking backwards at who my favorite character is. I remember when I was watching, it was definitely the droid, K2SO, for sure.
Well, how could you not fall in love with him? Like you mentioned, just having Alan Tudyk as the voice and everything, and then just the back and forth about where right when you meet him and Jin together, basically, there's the battling over the fact that why does she get a gun? I didn't get a gun.
Right. He's not like subservient. He's not subservient like like R2D2 and all the other droids that kind of are typical of Star Wars. He's like, like a rebel droid, which is great to see.
Yeah. Chris, I know you have a love for K2SO too, mostly because I know you love Alan Tudyk too. So go ahead. I know I'm not gonna let you.
I totally second on the K2SO. Fantastic representation of a droid. Yeah, and they're the only other guy I really wish we got to hear what he was really saying is R2, because there's the assumption that he's subservient, but then you listen to all the banter back and forth of him and 3PO, and 3PO often reminding him that his language is not appropriate. And it's like, well, I wonder what he actually said.
So those are
like Kenny from South Park.
Yeah, those are some of my favorite stupid internet videos, is when people overdub stuff on what R2's really thinking, because he's a cold-blooded murderer by some people's view.
Him and Chopper. Chopper for sure.
Chopper is definitely cold-blooded from the
Rebels
series,
and obviously K2 in his own right. He's got a mean streak about him, and he's so nonchalant about it. He's just like, gone.
Is it the British accent? Is that all it is? You just gotta sound elegant.
Maybe
or whatever's going on there.
It definitely goes along with the dry kind of delivery for sure.
He's just one of those voiceover gods. Some of those guys are just amazing at what they do, and they step into a role and a voice, and take it to the next level, and it transcends, and it makes the character so much better for all of us as movie watchers, because they didn't just read some lines, they understood the part.
Yeah, and he definitely
100%.
made that one his own. In literally the way he started off is literally with a punch in the face. He goes, "You're being rescued." Swap.
For a movie that is very, very heavy, very deep, very with a lot of very heavy undertones and overtones, him bringing in that little bit of comedic relief is actually what makes the movie less hard, because this movie could, if you actually go into the movie with what the actual meaning behind it is, it hits you hard. So
it's
having
heavy,
that
right?
little bit, having that little bit of comedic, it gives you that moment to just kind of, that was funny. Oh wait, now that guy just got shot in the head. Okay, let's go.
But that was always so Star Wars, though. That was one of the things that you guys remember going back and watching the original ones when you were kids. Those moments where Han Solo is just running at the freaking stormtroopers, chasing them down the hallway, and then and bang, 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 and runs back the other direction, right? It's those little peppered in moments that make it seem like, okay, if I was in this universe and that happened, that's probably how I would have acted. It's those little pieces to it that just add gravity and the fun, and then like you mentioned, Tommy, the craziness that is actually going on behind the scenes. So, Tommy, pick me a character who you want to talk about from Rogue One. So
we mentioned characters that aren't necessarily. We got to look at where we are in the universe right now. The Jedi are pretty much non-existent. Sith are existent, but to the only ones that really realize who the Sith are is the Empire. And so bringing in non-Force wielders, but people who believe in the Force. So I'm going to butcher the character's name. It's Chirrut, I think it is, or Karut. Yep. And he's the blind kind of monk guy, and
played by the perfect Donnie Yang, by the way.
Yes.
Yes.
I love the mantra. I love the friendship that he has. God, what's the other guy's name? He has that really cool gun, you know.
Baze or Maze. Baze, I think it is.
Yes, Baze. Baze, let me see, I got it up here. Baze Mulbus. Yep. But you can tell these guys are friends, and probably even more than friends. Neither here nor there, because they look out for each other. But you know, what was his mantra? I am one with the Force. The Force is with me. and honestly, that's, you know, he's not a Jedi, but he believes in this power that people have long forgotten about. And I think that is very important because it's also very foreshadowing of what's to come. The Force is going to come back to us, which, you know, if you ever listen to some of the all of the Star Wars movie names should be different episodes. So The Force Awakens should be actually episode 4. You know, so again,
that's a fun one.
Neither here nor there, but I love that character because he believes in this ancient religion, so to speak, that people have long forgotten about, and we are eventually going to get introduced to in episode 4. So I think that he's a very good, solid character, and again, part of this ragtag bunch of, you know, misfits who get together and to help take down the Empire.
Yeah.
There was actually an interesting little drop that I caught watching it the other day with the subtitles up. I didn't catch it any of the other times I watched it, but at one point, Cassian explains to Jin that Chimera and Baze were protectors of the Wills, Whills, which is a big deal to those of us who know, because the Wills is a big part of the Force. And I didn't catch that before. And it's just like, okay, that explains more his connection to the Force.
So what's the will again? What's the Wills?
The Wills would be ancient Force beings, and the ones who would have end up teaching Qui-Gon and Yoda and some of the other Jedi Masters how to commune with the Force and eventually become one with the Force.
Yeah. The other random part to that whole thing is eventually, when you get to, you know, other future Disney movies, that part of the Wills was the teachings that Luke Skywalker found in the books. So,
and I think we're gonna get more in that backstory with Ahsoka season 2, if I'm not mistaken, because that's what I think Baylan Skoll is looking for.
That's what they're hinting.
I'm actually looking for. Yep.
That's just the going back to the roots of the saga, right? If you're talking about how Jedi and Star Wars became a thing, well, why not tell the story on how Jedi got there? It's a very, you know, symbiotic piece to that whole thing. And to your point, Chirrut was the closest thing we had to a Jedi in Rogue One. And it was because he was guarding the Kyber crystals with Baze at the temple. And to those pieces, it's just the action sequences with him in it are some of the coolest things I've ever seen. And then throw this on top of it. He wanted to play the guy as a blind person. Let's throw that wrinkle on top of it. And it works in the Star Wars universe because if he is at all Force sensitive, not a Jedi, at all Force sensitive, there's some level of gravity there that actually plays well, because it's the spiritual enlightening part that we obviously grew up with as Star Wars fans that was ruined in one sentence in episode 1. So here we are, finally getting it grounded back to a little bit of what was, at least in many people's original thoughts on what being Force sensitive meant. And I just thought it was hilarious. The level of action mixed with, once again, humor with Chirrut and Wee was Donnie Lee literally just like making jokes that it's like they put the hood over him when Saw Gerrera and I'm all kidnapped, and he goes, "I'm blind. What do you want?"
It's so well done.
But what do I know? So, like I said, we've been talking characters, but you can't have any of these talks or anything about these great characters without, once again, another incredibly good villain. And with director Krennic running the Death Star program, just being a monster, giant asshole in the Star Wars universe, it just played so well. And it started off like every other Disney movie, by the way, just to say it, literally orphaning a child and starting right there again. I don't know how I hadn't put this together until this conversation.
That's actually hilarious.
Orphan children in Star Wars.
So, but it is. But he plays.
But that's typical Disney.
Right there, just check. That's how you start a Disney franchise off with Star Wars. Just kill some parents. Done.
Wait a minute. It's not just Disney. Harry Potter. Oh no, sorry. Just dropping that in everywhere.
Spoilers. But Chris,
Krennic was great. Like seeing his, like, you know, his expanded like story and like seeing him actually in his element at the Death Star, like all those kind of details. That's what made me love Andor. It's like fan service without being fan service. You know,
it fills in.
Yeah,
we're gonna get to that.
Yeah.
So, like, Chris, what did having a villain like that in the Disney franchise all of a sudden, with Star Wars being obviously the new brand, how important was it to have a villain that was just as pompous and evil as somebody like Director Krennic?
Director Krennic's such an interesting character because he's a perfect example of like how one's selfish greed and ambition really can drive somebody to the most evil points of themselves. And they really don't just play him well, they play him and Tarkin and Vader. Like, you see Vader as this tortured soul, always in the backs of tanks, coming out and just angry and just spiteful, and you know, he's driving these two angry guys against each other to create the most devastating thing they can possibly do, so he can just take it from both of them and turn it over to his emperor and be like, "Here, I made you your weapon. Now give me what I want. Show me how to bring back
power.
Show me how to bring back Padme."
There you go.
Oops.
Just real quick, how do you guys feel about the CGI Tarkin?
And that was a first at that time.
Yeah. Exactly.
He did all right.
De-aging.
I didn't mind it.
For years at that point. It's not. This wasn't like a. Hey,
He was
let's go
happy
knock
to
on the
get to
door.
come back and play the role, so that's cool.
Yeah.
His family
Yes.
was actually apparently legitimately asked about this whole situation.
And that's
They
what
were
I
like-
read. That's what I was reading.
And they loved the idea that his legacy as that character was able to be brought back in some fashion.
Yeah.
That family in that situation was all for this whole thing. Has that opened up a can of worms since? Of course.
100%.
That was,
Oh,
they didn't
100%.
abuse it though. They were respectful about it.
It was
Right.
well done. Yeah.
And it
Now,
was
if
same
you-
thing with
now, if you
Leia.
spot
remade-
on for the character.
If you remade a sequel trilogy and CGI'd in Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia throughout an entire new trilogy, that would be disrespectful to the use of it. That would be.
It was used tastefully. You were able to just sprinkle them in there to be the prick that we already knew that character was, and it just was. It pushed it over the top. It really did, because every Star Wars fan at the time knew that the gentleman that had played Tarkin has been dead for a long time.
Yeah.
We walked into the movie theater having no effing clue that they were going to be doing that, and you just went, "No!"
Like,
you know,
they do that.
and
It's
it was
incredible.
really
I
really
liked
cool.
it. I liked it.
And then we even got it taken to another level later in the movie, which we'll talk about. So I want to talk about some of the key scenes as we led through this movie. We see the crazy, battle to begin everything, that was where Jin gets stolen. But this movie really got taken over the top when they finally got to Jeddah. And you see literally the ground pounding that's going on with rebel forces versus the Empire right there in the ancient city. Tommy, I'll let you go with this one first, but what did that mean to you to finally see something on that kind of a level? Because the most crazy level that we ever seen to that kind of thing is in most of the animated shows. It was never that gritty. It was never that kind of small scale with them fighting between buildings and everything. It was those big grand battles that you see with the Gungans or the, whatever it might be.
Well, so as a military guy, those of you who know, I'm a Marine. That kind of close quarters combat is scary because and you can talk to any veteran who's ever fought in Afghanistan and Iraq and everything. When you're in villages and towns, you can't see everywhere. And so, that kind of guerrilla warfare that's, you don't know what's coming up next. And yeah, you got an occupying force that's trying to come in and, just because you got big tanks doesn't necessarily mean you're the strongest fighter. I liked the grittiness. I liked the realism behind it. Yeah, you know what? We got lasers and stuff like that, but for the most, you got tanks that are coming in. You got a uniformed force that's coming into your area, and they're not wanted there. I loved the battle scenes, especially the trench warfare scenes that you see, especially like in the beginning of Empire Strikes Back with the Battle of Hoth. That's the shit. That's the stuff that hits home. And I think that we really got a true, real kind of more realistic kind of battle with Rogue One than we had seen in any of the previous Star Wars movies, to include the original trilogy, or not the original trilogy, but the prequel trilogy. This was more gritty. This was more raw. And you, like I said, you've seen a part of the Star Wars universe that you didn't necessarily, it wasn't elegant lightsaber battles. This was dirt and explosions and people dying left and right. Chef's kiss to the battle scenes in Rogue One, especially especially when they go into the beach landing. But
that was a whole nother crazy thing right there too.
Tirade off.
What was the key word? Make 50 people look like 100 or 1,000 or whatever it was.
Yep. One more thing that I want to say, circling back real quick to Director Krennic. You know how that character is the worst or the most hated character in all of Star Wars? When no one buys his action figure.
Your valid point. Oh, too funny. So as we move through the rest of this movie, obviously, I thought this was one of the best parts of the whole movie. And it's that they're on the random planet where her father is, Galen Erso. And just the moral conundrums, to do this, to do that, to be in a spy stuff that was going on with Cassian Andor. And then obviously Jin getting a chance to actually see her father for the first time in a billion years. Chris, that whole rain-soaked scene, what was going through your head when you were watching those pieces?
You were really trying to figure out who Cassian was at that point. Is he the, sniper? Is he the assassin? Is he the rebel spy who does all the dirty work? Or does he have a soul? And, you see him being conflicted, and, you got K2 ratting him out, and the Jedi or Chimred telling him, like he sensed that he was gonna kill somebody, and it threw a lot of interesting suspicion into that scene, which turned into a really intense scene, because you ended up having an X-wing bombing raid come in at the end and break up this whole interaction between director Krennic and his lead scientists and Galen Erso, and Galen just straight up finally saying to him, like, "The heck with you, dude! I put a thing in the Death Star, and you know what? You won't find it, and we made sure you'll never find it, and you know." Good luck to you, because he knew it was about to happen. He knew Krennic was dirty. He knew sooner or later what would happen to him, and that's why he wanted his family away from them.
Yeah, good call. Thomas or Tommy, either of you have anything you'd want to add about that part before we literally move on to the speech that leads to a beach storming?
I'm on the thing.
Honestly, Chris nailed it. He we really don't know what Cassian's motivation is. We actually learn more about Cassian in the series Andor, but no, Chris nailed it on the head. It's just we don't know who he is really. Is he just going to be is he just a cog for the rebellion and does what he's told, or does he actually have a conscience? Yeah,
and to me that's like one of the characteristics that makes like a good movie, like where like the movie lets you figure it out. Like instead of just straight up telling you like, hey, this guy, you got to watch out for him. He may be good, he may be bad. It's kind of like that's the sense that you get from watching the movie instead of like, kind of hand walking you through it.
Yeah. You mean like adding who shot first in a certain situation?
Exactly right. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, did he even
I couldn't help it. It was right there. You're like, Thomas, you put that ball right on the tee. I had to hit it out.
Exactly.
So, Thomas, I'm going to let you run with the beginning of this first one. We do get the speech thing. Rebellions are built on hope. Jyn Erso rallies literally the troops. They steal the ship that they came just riding in on from the rain-soaked scene, and they decide to attack Scarif. And then that battle just continues to blossom into the battle and the epicness that it was. Starship battle up the crazy. Literally, we lose the whole Blue Squadron because they weren't in the fourth one. So, but Gold League,
I mean, for me, that just the build up to that, because like all the way up until really those scenes, it was kind of very small scale, very kind of like a personal, like character driven story. While as like for me, usually Star Wars is just big, epic all the time. The stakes are just so high for everything. It's like everything's on a galactic scale, and it was like, this movie coming in, it's very personal all the way up until you start understanding what those stakes are. So like for me, once you get into those huge battles, it was just the movie's so well paced. It's like start small scale, kind of very I guess personal stakes, and then moving into like this,
this is how you start a rebellion.
Yeah,
basically how you end the movie.
Giant scale, everything from like the conflict to the battles just expanded, grew. It was just for me just a great way to pace. Just a
So
good
Tommy,
way to show how well it's paced.
Yep. So Tommy, you wanted to talk the Battle of Scarif because I could see you talking about it and starting to lead into that whole thing.
So the Battle of Scarif is again, it's trench warfare. We were able to sneak our way onto this island, or at least make our way onto it, and again, it's that whole make 50 people look like 1,000, whatever, and they lay waste, and we get introduced to new types of stormtroopers. And we didn't mention the Death Troopers in the beginning of the movie, which I'm a fan of stormtroopers. I just like the style. I liked when we got into episode 9, and this is just foreshadowing, we got Sith troopers and they were useless. I don't even know why we had them, but they were red stormtroopers and I thought they were freaking cool. We got Death Troopers, and now yes. and we gave their armor some texture. But anyways, no, but we got black stormtroopers, we got death troopers, and that was probably really cool. But then we also got another type of stormtrooper with the shore troopers. They're camouflage. They got the desert camouflage armor on, whatever. Still very cool. I just enjoyed the fact that we got to see another good ground battle that wasn't, just point and shoot like we're in like the Revolutionary War days where everybody took turns shooting at each other. We actually got a full-on battle, and we got to see characters at their most heroic. You got the guy with the Gatling type gun strapped to his back, and he's just freaking pulling a Jesse Ventura in Predator. And then you got a blind guy who's not a Jedi, but he is one with the Force, and he is just laying waste to a sophisticated fighting force that obviously still can't hit anything, even at point blank range.
all while like a space battle is like
yeah. We got two battles going on two fronts. We got a space battle above the planet, and then we actually got a ground war going on, and we still don't even know if we're going to make it.
Mm-hmm. So
right. But I will say this about the space battle. When they took that Corsair Corvette and they pushed that friggin' Star Destroyer into the gate, oh, that was chef's kiss.
Boom. There
man.
it is.
Better than light speed skipping.
Let's not go there.
It finally made sense to design that. Like, if you ever played the X-Wing Starfighter game, which was like a flight simulator game, they talked about it being a starship for ramming, but they never once told you how to use it or what to do with it or what the point of it was. And we finally got an answer to that after all this time.
Yep. There you go. The Hammerhead Corvette.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Let's just flash forward here just a little bit, because there's some amongst these things, there's some key moments as we're wrapping up the show here tonight. Chirrut Îmwe gives, himself up to make sure that the Death Star antenna is lined up. Then you have, Jin and Cassian sending the files. They unfortunately die on the beach when the Death Star slams the whole planet into, or at least a good portion of it into a crater. You get all these pieces. Too. And they get Krennic too, which was great. Finally got that piece and just knocked them down. All leading, all these insanely good moments where we were on an emotional roller coaster to all of a sudden just leading up to a dark hallway. I think I got to get everybody's opinion on what in the world just thinking about that scene again and what I felt like in the movie theater for that whole thing is giving me chills. Chris, you haven't had the chance to go first here in a hot minute, so I'm going to let you go first for the hallway scene where Darth Vader is this close to getting those Death Star plans back.
It just brings everything full circle. You were waiting for the connection point and how is this like whole Battle of Scarif, all these things, how is it going to connect? We see him running down the hallway. We see him just laying waste to every trooper that tries to even like step in front of him. And it's like, how did he even get away with the plans? And like skin of their teeth, Star Wars moment, just hair of your chin, they get away. And it's just like, oh man. But it was it was a great full circle moment for the movies and for all of us fans who were waiting for that special little connection. And they like to drop it in with cameos and just tiny moments.
Yeah, and that tiny moment literally dialed it up to 11. Just saying.
It did.
Thomas, drop me your opinion on that. Take me back. What was in the mindscape?
Pretty much follows what Chris was saying. Like tied up the movie really well. Of course, like yeah, just tied up the loose ends. But even beyond like what it provided in terms of the story and finishing up the movie, it was just so cool. Like all Star Wars fans, like actual Star Wars fans, I feel like had been waiting for like a badass, like new original Darth Vader moment. So like when that, like I just remember watching it in theaters and just being like, yes, like, you
I
know,
remember
like
having to like
everything.
rehinge my jaw.
Exactly,
She
like,
was on the
you know,
floor.
it's like back to scary, like badass Darth Vader who will like straight up murder scores of stormtroopers, you know, like it was so sad. And I talk about like fan service, like that's how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Just give us a good nugget. They know all the fans wanted that. Like it was perfect ending. Perfect.
Perfect. Tommy, talk to me.
You know, I got to piggyback on what Chris said. It brought everything full circle, 100%. As a matter of fact, though, that was a scene that wasn't in the original cut. They went back and they put that scene in, and 100% was the icing on the cake, the cherry on top of to me, what is the quintessential perfect modern Star Wars movie. And it was it needed? Probably not. But did it make it even better? Hell yeah. And like Thomas said, I was sitting there in the theater watching that going, oh fuck yeah. That's it right there. That's exactly what I'm talking about, because Darth Vader is supposed to be this ultimate, like the evil in the galaxy outside of Palpatine. And we actually got to see that moment before you see him on, on the transport ship, making his way. You finally get to see what it was like. And like you said, to your point, was this close to getting those plans back. And then the rest is history. Then we make our way to Tatooine. We meet Luke Skywalker. We meet Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then the trilogy that we know. And I look at this as a true prequel to our original trilogy, the one that we grew up watching, and having it called a Star Wars story, fantastic, because that's exactly what it is. It's a Star Wars story, and it tied perfectly into the original trilogy that we know, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah. And then the exact last tip of the hat, because the thing, my point on the Darth Vader part, we saw him early in the movie when Krennic basically goes to whine to him why he's no longer in charge and Tarkin is, right? And you get the like almost like ball gazer like bit where he gets them to the point where he's like, don't choke on your aspirations, that kind of thing. I never thought in a million years they would do anything but that Darth Vader moment. I literally, in my mind, yep, that was my cameo. That's all I'm going to see for Darth Vader.
And you're happy with it. And you're happy with it. Yeah, same.
100% solid, ready to go. And I thought the next time I would literally see him is when I inevitably went home after this movie and watched episode 4, and you see him just emerge from the other ship, right? And the fact that you got to see that next piece where, to your point, that's been one of the most memed things in a million years, is every time anybody does anything in professional sports where they're just destroying or go on a bajillion-0 record, they show that scene just with people getting sliced up to the point where they put the team logos on the faces of all the rebel soldiers where Vader's just running through everybody. But that last tip of the hat, another CGI moment that nobody was expecting. You did get that little Carrie Fisher moment where they are literally physically handing her the plans. The camera pans around where you weren't expecting to see her actual face. And you simply get, well, what is it? And then just hope. Done.
Yep.
Movie. Over with. And like I said, just chills. Like I'm like feeling it like all over again, just thinking about it. Because that just tied, like you said, that was the last bow on everything that needed to be there. And if you're trying to show young directors, young writers, how you write a movie that is a prequel to something that everybody loves, Star Wars Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, is a masterclass on how you can keep everybody happy and tell a great story at the same time. And I don't know if anybody would argue with me on that, but
Star Wars fan base can be pretty toxic, as you guys know.
Oh yeah.
I'm waiting to see what the comment section looks like for this show. Just saying.
We got to get people to comment.
Come on, it'll be good. It'll be good. So, but this did spin off, like we were talking about. We finally got the chance to see in the recent Star Wars history, Cassian Andor. I know Thomas, you and Chris are both huge Andor fans. Chris, tell me what you thought about them, even first off having the idea to this and then going where they went with it.
They found fantastic writing. They did a spectacular job with the storytelling. They came up with another Star Wars story that you could put in front of a non-Star Wars fan, not even tell them what they're watching, and they would be happy watching a good show because it was just a good show. Like, it didn't try too hard to be anything that it wasn't. It told the story of a very conflicted character who had a very interesting life as an orphan. Not a Star Wars orphan story, but it's
Disney.
Yeah, and those are the stories that are compelling. That how did this character find the strength to survive all of this? And you see the trials and tribulations, and they started at one point, and by the end of season 1 you start to see the Cassian character coming around to being a rebel, but by midway through season 2 he's committed, he's a soldier, he's fighting for something that he truly believes in, and it was a cool thing to watch somebody make that transition.
Good deal. Thomas, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And to Chris's point, all the just seeing Cassian, especially his backstory just expanded upon, and getting more context on why he is how he is. And actually the key point I think Chris made was that it's very approachable to non-Star Wars fans. Generally is just kind of telling a story about an oppressed group of people and rising up against their oppressors, etc. And that's a very relatable story, but in the context of Star Wars, and it's just well done. It just kind of continues along the same lines of Rogue One, in terms of good writing, good character design, good acting. Again, Paul Guerrera is a beast in that show. But yeah, great show. Kind of continues, the Rogue One, or doesn't continue the Rogue One story, but obviously it's a prequel. But it just gives so much more context to Rogue One, and makes especially the ending just much more I rewatched Rogue One after watching both seasons of Andor, and everything just hits a little harder, great series, man. Highly recommend.
Good deal. Tommy, put a bow on it.
So truth be told, when season 1 of Andor came out, I thought it was a little slow. But after watching season 2, I went back and I rewatched the entire season again from season 1 to season 2, and grew to have a much greater appreciation for season 1, as like you said, season 1 was all about character development. You got to know Cassian Andor and what was, motivations, what was going on. Season 2, phenomenal. There is a reason why Mon Mothma's speech is used in social media, and why it was up for awards is because it is so poignant, not only for the story, but again, I will say it's very poignant for what is going on in the world right now. And it's, again, not trying to get political, but when art imitates life, and people use that as a calling, as a cry for, justice and things to happen, it just makes you know that, obviously somebody's paying attention to not only what, just good writing, but what's going on in the world right now, and giving it a face, so to speak, and giving it to where people might actually take it and do something with it. And honestly, I felt bad because I thought the first season was kind of slow, but now understanding it and then seeing again, and I'll say this, season 2 of Andor was probably even more brutal than Rogue One. Very brutal. We see a massacre and play out, and purposely done, and those, again, not getting political, but we can almost see stuff like that happening nowadays.
Well,
anyways, I'm done with that.
One of those doomed history things, Tommy, because you almost can think that was based on the Boston Massacre with no problem too, but that's besides the point. So anyways, perfectly well said. That speech you mentioned by Mon Mothma, also very poignant, but then the Cassian's, I guess, quasi-mother in the first season had the hollow projected one that was just also just spot on during her, I guess, funeral. But just perfectly beautifully way of summing up that character and giving us that wonderful backstory for Cassian Andor on why he was so conflicted. That's like you said, Thomas, that scene where he's holding the rifle trying to just figure out what he wants to do there in the rain. It was clearly because of all those events that happened in Andor that now carry more weight on him, even at that point, on a moment that already carried plenty of weight in a movie that was as good as Rogue One was. So,
and I was just going to mention, in terms of speeches, also shout out to Andy Serkis as Kino Loy. Like,
oh god, yeah.
Oh man, he's so good.
Andy Serkis is by far one of the best character actors, whether it's a CGI or himself.
Yeah,
best character actors in modern time. I mean, best character
probably
actor in 21st century.
If it's not for like Alan Tudyk, like it's between them two.
Yeah, and how spoiled were we to get them both in this, Rogue One universe part that we got, right? So
it was
we're gonna wrap
really
it up here, boys,
amazing
because we're basically at the hour. But go ahead and finish your thought, Chris.
It was really amazing. Each of the main characters really had a point where they had a standout monologue speech that really just set them apart. Luthen's was amazing too. All he sacrificed and whatever, it really just, it was great.
What kind of an amazing character did he play too in
I
that whole show? That was, like I said, the Rogue One universe in the Star Wars part here. We were so spoiled with this series with the quality that clearly didn't carry over to other places. But that's an episode for another
day.
Because there's a whole can of worms there.
As always, 1 hour is never enough because we only cracked the surface, and we didn't even talk about any of the other characters that were so important to this story. The defecting pilot. Exactly. I mean,
Tommy.
We've lost, so again, it's like we always kind of just, that's the reason why doing like a specified show is always so hard, because you're only going to scratch the surface. And when you can get more, dig deeper into the stories and who the characters are and the character development. I mean, we could talk a whole episode about Saw Gerrera, and still and still not talk about everything about that character.
All right. So I want to just go, this is the last topic, boys. I just want to go around the table one more time and just put a bow on what, after the Star Wars Rogue One release, I want to get your thoughts on where you thought things would be going and where they might have ended
That's a
up.
loaded question. You already know the answer.
I always try to end on a joke, and I know this is going to be humorous. I try to keep it pointed. Give me a quick plot point or whatever it might be. You know, you don't need to say that this whole thing fell apart because of porgs in the one movie or something like that. I don't care what you do. But on that note, Thomas, I'm going to start with you. Give me something that this movie specifically had you looking forward to, or something that, you know, maybe was something you got because of this movie.
Honestly, specific. This movie made me like just, I don't know, looking forward to, but kind of made me a little bit more hopeful about Disney taking over, because it was kind of like, oh, so this is how it's going to be going forward. That's absolutely great. Like, let's keep pumping these out. And you know, even back then, I think they had already started talking about a standalone Han Solo movie. And so it's kind of like, oh, this might turn out to be absolutely great.
Yep.
And that's what I was thinking after watching it in theaters, you know.
Good deal. Chris, what are you thinking? Where did this one leave you at as far as the Star Wars universe goes?
Disney has the ability to make good Star Wars movies. Even their awful ones have moments of brilliance. You know, I really am keeping my fingers crossed. I'm incredibly hopeful because I want The Mandalorian and Grogu to be good.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes,
Valid.
me both.
And it's got the right hands at the helm on that one. So hopefully that means that something fun is coming our direction. I loved the Ahsoka Tano series. So that was a great, even though everybody was like, oh, it's just real life rebels. And it's like, yeah, but they had an amazing story that they wrapped up in that series. And there's still enough things going on that we get to enjoy in a new movie or TV show. Tommy, where did Rogue One have you?
I like everybody else. I was extremely hopeful. I was going into it with like, okay, we got Disney money. Disney money's telling us some good stories. We got good writing, and now it's like hit or miss. You got something good with Andor tying everything together, and then you got the Acolyte. You know, you got. Sometimes you makes you wonder if people are going in the vein of, are we trying to sell toys or are we trying to sell Star Wars? You know, because Star Wars doesn't have to be the Skywalker saga. We've proven that it can be all these other stories that are out there. And I'm hoping that when we get Starfighter, that we're getting a new story, a good story, and I'm hoping that, you know, Kevin Feige and Dave Filoni at the helm, I would hope that they right the ship, so to speak, and fix what needs to be fixed, and give us the stories, give the Star Wars fans, old and new, something that they can say, yes, that is truly Star Wars, whether it's something completely brand new that has nothing to do with the Skywalker saga. You know, if they're going to do something with the Rey saga, give us something different. You know, do I want to see epic lightsaber battles? Sure, why not? But do I need them? No, I don't. You know, give me something good. Exactly.
You know, they do some of that with the games that they've recently been releasing. Like there's one, Jedi Survivor, that is a new story. Another episode. We need to do an episode on the games. Even even
you mean the 100 some odd of them that we've had over
the whole episode.
You had to pick a generation and go from there, bud.
Some that aren't canon anymore.
Most that aren't canon anymore. So Tommy, give me your dad joke. I know you're dying to tell me whatever the hell this dad joke is.
All right, my dad joke I'm stealing this from social media, but it's all in the delivery. What is Forrest Gump's favorite pasta?
You got me, bud.
Penne.
Okay.
Right. On that note, I got to apparently think of a new joke, everybody, because I said I'd finish on a joke.
That's pretty good. I have a Chat GPT generated one.
Oh, great.
It's a little inappropriate, but why don't stormtroopers use protection? You can probably guess.
Has something to do with not shooting first.
And because they have zero risk of hitting the target. Yes, you're right.
Now, see, Tommy, that's how you write a joke.
That's how AI
GPT.
writes a joke.
That's AI.
Thanks, ChatGPT. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I saw about 100 of you coming in and out according to the ranking thing tonight. Thank you very much for listening to the wonderful fun that has been the comeback show of TNC Random Fandom. I am your host, Craig Boren. My buddy here, Tommy, going to be back here every other week. Again, is the hope and plan. And we'll have wonderful characters just like Chris and Thomas here with us to join us along the path and on the way. And hopefully we'll be out for a few remotes and we get a chance to chit chat with you in person. Tommy, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Shameless self plug. Going back, we got a new season for the Flint Hill Dance Troupe. We are going to be starting practices next month. So if you are interested, please hit me up in the DMs at my Instagram page or at Flint Hill Dance Instagram. And our first performances are already looking to be at the Genesee Country Village and Museum for the Maple Sugar Festival. So if you want to see some 19th century dancing and get some fresh maple syrup made on the premises, by all means, come out to the Maple Sugar Festival at the Genesee Country Village and Museum. And glad to be back. Glad to have Thomas and Chris on our first episode. And hopefully we will see both of them on a very regular basis, because sometimes we may need a little bit of help.
Yeah, Tommy and I have a horrible schedule. So on that note, just for my shameless self-plug of the night, if you are a baseball fan or a rock and roll fan, make sure you check out this past episode of the Jaybird Watching podcast. We had our friend Shane Told of the band Silverstein on once again, and he was a wonderful good time to hang out with. And we actually got some rock and roll questions to him this time. Last 2 times he's been on the show, he's only wanted to talk baseball. Apparently we're his escape. So on that note, everybody, have a great evening. Catch you in 2 weeks. Every other Sunday, we will be here on the TNC Random Fandom podcast. Listen wherever you get your podcasting pleasures, and we will talk to you all soon. Cheers.
Good night, everybody.